Well, hello, everyone. You're back with another Generation X-Men because life got in the way, and we couldn't read Life Death last week because of life leading us toward death. We're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about what drew us to the X-Men, that first X-Men issue, and what kept us reading. Because, hey, that's nostalgia, and nostalgia's always in, baby.
That's right.
I am your host, J.Ishiro, author and alien in a human suit. I'm the author of several graphic novels and novellas available on Amazon, but more importantly, I'm also the author of Boobs of Steel Part 1, a 3-part series that you all should read. It's the best damn pop culture book you will ever read. Book 1 covers the entire history of the Amazonian archetype, starting from the Neolithic era all the way up to the modern age. We cover everything. The pulp. You will learn so much about anime, the pulps, film, and Jungian archetypes in this book, and a bit about the culture war. So check it out. Link in the description.
And if you don't, the opposite gender will no longer find you attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Scientific fact proven. 15 out of 9 dentists all agree.
Yes. And with us is, as always, come on, one of you's got to introduce yourself.
The wonderful Janelle, mead goddess of mead.
And the wonderful Kronk, the good orc, and it's not easy being green for him. But is it ever easy being green?
When the sun's high, that's about it. You know, the photosynthesis and whatnot. That's it.
All right. Okay, then. That's kind of nice and depressing, I think. We're reduced to photosynthesis now. Before we start, no, Generation X-Men is not on Rumble quite yet, but we are slowly moving all of our shows over there. And the #1 show, Gen X is Pissed Off. The Pissed Off Gen Xer show is on Rumble. So go over there right now and subscribe, because really there's a lot of reason to subscribe. Not only do you get to hear the podcast through Rumble without any risk of being censored or the show just suddenly going down because YouTube suddenly got a bug up its ass about something I said. Every week I upload show highlights, so you get to hear audio remastered, best clips of the show, whittled down to just the main story, all the long pauses, all the awkward ers and ums cut out, all the weird mixing issues gone. So like if Janelle bursts into laughter so loud your eardrums are blown out during the show, that won't happen. That won't happen when you're listening to it on the
not that that's going to happen, but in case it ever does.
I'm sorry, I know my laugh is really loud.
Oh no, we've got it's a common thing people bring up. So but anyway, right now, if you go on over there, you'll get to hear some of the highlights from 2 weeks ago, including the story of the Goth Girl Grave Robber,
yes,
weaponized MREs, and the Lunchables experiment.
Now, don't go there right now because the show is live and it's not on Rumble yet. But yeah, after the show, if you don't go over there, oh my gosh. I'm going to put more peer pressure on you.
Like, subscribe, comment on the videos. That's important. That helps the Rumble channel. But also featured are the Blipverts, where you get to hear Raltz and Kat rip on Wakanda forever. And Raltz saying that anyone who likes that film needs to get, when they're done guzzling mouse cock.
Wow.
Oh, wow. I just almost had peach smoothie go up my nose. Awesome.
I'm going through the older shows and cutting out stories and various clips, and one of the ones I'm including is when Raltz punched a horse.
I've punched a horse.
So the true story of Raltz getting drunk in England during the tax poll riots and punching a policeman's horse.
Okay, yeah,
I like that story.
My story's not that good.
That'll be going up this week.
Speaking of you moving to Rumble, I actually do think there's going to be an exodus soon of a lot of smaller channels, because I've seen on YouTube other small channels that I follow are saying that they're being throttled now as well, and it's having, nobody showing up.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. We've known for quite a while that somebody at YouTube has a personal vendetta against me because I hurt their feelings, I guess. But yeah, YouTube's just gotten to the point where they want to purge anyone who doesn't kneel at the altar of Kamala.
Kamala.
So anyway, we're going to talk about X-Men now.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, if you guys want to share your stories in the chat about what your first introduction to the X-Men, what brought you to the book and why you stayed with it, at least until Claremont was around, and when Claremont left, I understand why you'd put it back down, but share it in the chat and we'll talk about it. So Janelle, you're going to get to go first.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, this is actually very vivid to me, and I remember it really well. We were going up to see my dad's best friend's family. They lived in Temecula, and usually when we went up there, we were spending the night. So my dad's friends had two kids, a son and a daughter, and the son was into comics, and we had been outside playing and it got too hot, and we came inside and I noticed this very flashy cover with this dude with claws, a chick with green sunglasses, and this guy with red and magenta eyes. And I'm like, oh shit, hey, I know what that is. That's the X-Men video game, because I played the video game first. And I sat down and I opened it and I was immediately entranced. And it was issue number 4, Claremont and Lee, the first appearance of Omega Red. I'd never seen art like that before, because mostly at this time I had been reading strips from the newspaper or Archie Comics digests. This was very different from that. And I just kept reading it over and over again and studying it, and I asked if I could borrow it. So the friend's son said yes, and he also let me borrow Captain America. It was Captain America, and they were stuck in a house made of dough, which is the weirdest comic I've ever seen. And then yeah, and then The Flash, and I can't remember what issue that was, but it was Wally West, and he was running across in the Speed Force holding his wife, Linda. So those are 3 comics that I started out with, but I kept reading X-Men, and I read it to the point the comic literally fell apart, and I had to staple it back together, like how any 12-year-old would be like, okay, this is awesome, instead of, stapling it back together properly. I did it really poorly. But I kept reading it, and finally, I had been begging my parents for months to take me to a comic book store, and they were like, no, we're not going to take you. We're not letting you waste your money on comics. Oh. And finally, my mom got so irritated with me just begging. My dad was like, just take her. So they took me to a place called Sun Comics on Main Street. No, was it Main Street or 2nd Street? I don't know. It was downtown El Cajon. And it was literally in an apartment complex. It was a converted apartment. And I mean, we're talking, this was the most disorganized place, just stacks and stacks of comics. And it had this horrible orange shag carpeting. I remember this stuff so clearly. And I was in awe because I'd never been in a comic book store before. And I was like, holy shit. And I remember going to the wall and it said, this week's releases. And I found, all of a sudden I was like, wait, there's more titles. There's something called Uncanny X-Men. There's something called X-Force. There's something called X-Factor. There's something called Excalibur. And it was right in the middle of the Executioner song crossover. So I snapped everything up except for Excalibur. Because it wasn't part of the crossover, I didn't pick up that it still would relate. So I bought these comics and went home and I read them till they fell apart too. And every month my mom would take me begrudgingly. She was so pissed. She hated it so much. But I was an automatic X-Men addict, which started blowing people's minds at middle school because girls didn't read X-Men. That was a no-no. And then I started doing like really shitty drawings because, I thought it was cool. And I was trying to emulate Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee. And for the longest time, I couldn't draw feet because I was following Liefeld and Lee.
Fuck you, Liefeld.
So I thought they were supposed to be on point. Anyway, my parents knew it was a serious addiction. When I started buying all the Marvel Masterpiece cards, all the X-Men cards, when X-Men, the animated cartoon came out and I was grabbing videotapes and, erasing whatever football game was on there so I could record X-Men and watch it over and over during the week. I think the thing that really shocked them and kind of pissed them off was I saved up $25 for a whole year so I could go into comics and stuff and buy the first appearance of Gambit for $25. And they were like, you could have bought a bunch of other things. I was like, yeah, but I have the first appearance of Gambit now. That one I did not read over and over and over again because that was like gold to me. I read it twice and then I framed it on my wall.
Oh, wow.
And that really upset my parents too, because they didn't like me putting holes and tape on the wall when I was taping up all my comics. We went to, what's it called? Toys R Us one day, and I was just looking around. That's where I found the Arthur Adams poster that he had made in 1988, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 88, yeah.
I begged. I even said, I will go home and do chores right now. Please just buy me this poster. And they did. I immediately put it up. My mom immediately took it down. That was a battle. I still have the poster. I had a friend that worked at Prince Plus and she framed it for me. It came with me to SDSU to my dorm room. Like this thing, I would not leave it behind. Everywhere I moved, it went with me. And it's framed. You can see the old tape and the rips and the points from the thumbtacks, the holes, but it's still, I love it. I started collecting action figures at this point too. And X-Men for me was an escape from the shitty situation I was in. And my parents knew how to get me to fold and do what they wanted. They would grab my comic books and throw them in the fireplace and tell me they were going to light them on fire if I didn't start doing better with grades or the chores weren't getting done well enough. So, yeah, that was fun. But I always got them back. I think one of them realized that if they would have burned my comics, I would have probably never spoken to them again. Like that would have been
down
it.
The house.
Oh no, I just would have been like dumb. Like when I turned 18, I would have moved out and never spoke to them again. Like that was something I think they figured out. So as I got older and I went to high school, I met another girl who was reading X-Men. She was reading Jim Lee and Chris Claremont's X-Men #8, which was the last issue Claremont was on. She was the only other girl I knew that read comics, and we became friends. Unfortunately, she had really psychotic, abusive parents that were in a cult, and I didn't see her for like 2 years in high school until like we reconnected our senior year and hung out. But she was really hardcore into X-Men like I was. And it just like it kind of went from there after I graduated from high school, and I made friends with not so good people, and I was throwing parties left and right. People would like to sleep in my room because my bedroom was covered in comic books and X-Men posters. And I had one friend say he loved waking up in my room because the visions that he would get in the morning were scenes of violence from the covers. So, yeah, it blew people's minds. Even after I graduated from high school, some of the people that, I ran around with were like, holy shit, you read X-Men? And I would like spout off everything that I'd read. They started giving me their old comics from when, because they didn't read them anymore. So they were giving me all their old X-Men comics, and that's how my collection grew. When I was at SDSU was the first time I stopped reading X-Men, though, but that's because it sucked, not because I didn't want to. That was when the whole Joseph clone shit was going on, and I thought smokes and weed were better than reading that tripe. So, I mean, it's if for a hardcore X-Men fan, you know that you've done wrong if your fan would rather go buy marijuana and Marlboro Lights than read your comic. Just saying. Just saying. So more time goes on. I meet my now husband, and he finds out I'm into X-Men. A bunch of people know I'm into X-Men now. That's like, people ask me constantly about X-Men. When the teaser poster first came out for the 2000 X-Men movie, people were flipping out and like taking me to the movie theater so they could show me the teaser posters. I even had a friend take a picture of me in front of it because I was super excited. When I got together with Steve, I did not realize, I thought I was a hardcore X-Men fan. Well, this is the man that introduced me to Robotech and had like every single friggin' X-Men comic from like the 1980s to about the time Jim Lee, the time the comic book split, because he was the same with you, Ishii. It was #1. He was tired of buying like 7 different variants for one comic as a collector. But 2, the storyline started to suck. So he was like, forget it, I'm out. But within 1 month.
It was Fabian Nicci's writing that really killed it for me.
Yeah. He starts good and then just goes to shit. He stops caring and he goes to shit and they fire him or whatever.
I really didn't like the return of Magneto, the way they did it, but whatever.
That was Jim Lee. Jim Lee's the one that forced the return of Magneto.
I thought that the Omega Red arc was actually enjoyable enough, and that was written by John Byrne, so I get it.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Actually, yeah, no, think about it. That was the first X-Men comic I read, so of course I was hooked. I mean, everybody had Wolverine hair, though, like, what was his name?
Shinobi, yeah.
Oh, not Shaw. Shinobi Shaw. No, it was Matsuo Sorayaba, the guy that helped take Elizabeth and, get her into the hand.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So to go back to what I was saying, I spent a month reading every single comic book Steve had, and that's how I caught up. And then I did it again because I wanted to reread it. And just like I said, for me, X-Men was an escape from my not so awesome household experience. I would come home and just dig into my comics and just read them. And if I wasn't reading, I was drawing. And even when I'd come home from swim practice in high school, I'd go take my shower, go eat dinner, and then go read some X-Men comics and then, go to bed. It truly was a safe place for me. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, safe space. But it's like I felt like I could relate because these were all people that were like hated and treated by like shit by others. And I have been bullied most of my life. And, I'm not going to be one of, oh my God, my life is so awful because I was bullied. But it fucking sucks when you're bullied in the moment. And I was bullied at home too. So, I mean, like, these mutants were really awesome in my opinion. And, this is how hardcore my dad knew I was too. When the X-Men video game for Sega Genesis came out, I was like, oh man, I want this. My dad, bless him, went and bought a Sega Genesis that night with the X-Men video game and brought it home to me.
That's really nice of him.
Yeah. So, okay, when I say that I had a shitty home life, people have to remember that my father had brain damage from playing in the NFL. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, my dad, if he hadn't had the brain damage, would have been awesome. But when you have your frontal lobes turned to mashed potatoes after being struck in the head so many times, and you can't regulate, and so it wasn't fun. And like I said, both my parents were alcoholics, so that made it even worse. But when my parents were on, they were on, but when they were off, they were off. Like I said, I mean, my dad went and bought me a friggin' Sega Genesis. Now, I will say, in hindsight, he was thinking a little ahead, because soon after that came out, the Madden NFL games also started showing up in my Sega library. Or, like NBA, NCAA. So, no, I know that him and his coaching friends, when, I wasn't around, they would come over, drink beers, and play Madden, or, like NBA, which, like I said, not a problem. But yeah, that's why also I'm just so friggin' angry at Marvel, because they had the golden goose, and they could have kept the golden goose going and going and going, and I don't think Claremont would have ever been done. And not just Claremont, just X-Men in general. But they got greedy, and then they got stupid.
Oh yeah, they got stupid.
Yeah, I mean, they got greedy, and then that greed screwed them over, because the guys that were also being greedy left and started Image. And yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of people got into X-Men in the late 80s, early 90s, but I want to just, the 90s, to me, like the early to mid 90s, it was all style, no substance. And when those artists left, I mean, I'm just going to say it right now, I can't stand Andy Kubert's art. He's the one that took over for Jim Lee. He has a weird obsession with hands. Go back and look at his art and see how he draws hands. They can never be at somebody's side. They can never be at rest. And they're always doing something weird. And he also couldn't draw eyes or jaws on women. All the women have these weird square jaws. Now, over time, yes, Andy Kubert's art has gotten a lot better, but I am also going to say, in my opinion, that Andy was a Nepo hire, and they were desperate to get somebody in that did the hash mark shading art, and he was the one. But good Lord, I mean, going from Jim Lee to Andy Kubert was jarring.
Oh, yeah.
It was awful. The only credit I will give to him is he drew tits on the women bigger than Jim Lee did, so that's the added bonus.
That had to be upside.
But yeah, I mean, oh God, there was one issue when I think it was issue 27, maybe, where Gambit and Psylocke are going through Mr. Sinister's base, or maybe it was further back. I can't remember. But Andy Kubert, the editorial didn't catch this. And I'm like, how did you not catch this? This is so blatant. He drew 5 fingers and a thumb on Psylocke while she was looking at Riptide's resin ninja stars. You know how he would go into the make the tornado spin around, and then he would make what's it called, ninja stars or whatever come out.
Yeah,
right.
The stars and the spikes and the little size and everything.
Yeah, like all of a sudden Psylocke had 5 fingers and a thumb, and I was like, yo, that's just as bad as when Liefeld drew an Uncanny X-Men. Was it Uncanny X-Men? Where he drew the wrong feet on Jubilee, so on her right leg was her left foot, and on her left leg was her right foot. And that was the opening page, and I mean, it's right there. It's so bad. So, yeah, so Marvel editorial was also slipping at this point.
Yeah.
Was that?
I mean, those are like you can't even blame an AI for that.
Was that before his Levi commercials and Taco Bell commercials?
Hey, can you click on Wings of Eternal Night real quick? She said something that resonates. Oh no, all the way up at the top.
Oh.
Yeah. Do you see it?
The big paragraph.
Yeah. So, Janelle, I can understand completely why X-Men means so much to you. That is why they mean the same to me. I was bullied as a young girl when I first came to America when I was 13 years old. Oh, you know what? If you would have come to my school, you and I would have been besties. Like
from Ireland and Norway.
Ireland and Norway, damn. Huh. Yeah, I think you and I, yeah, if you went to my school, I think you and I would have been besties. Because, I mean, like I said, Elizabeth, her name is Sequoia now. She changed her name. But like I said, I immediately gravitated. I was a very shy person, but I went up to this girl, was like, oh my God, you love X-Men? I love X-Men. And she just kind of looked at me and I was like, you know, my favorite issue right now is X-Men #4, but that's the first one I read. And like, we became friends like that, and we would draw together. We would create our own superheroes that we wanted to be. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I do think a lot of kids that were bullied read X-Men.
Well, as I had said before, that was one of the appeals, I think, why it resonated with so many people our age. I mean, like I said, yeah, Gen X, latchkey generation, nobody wanted us, everything was our fault. School
I wish you were exaggerating. I really do wish you were exaggerating.
Yeah.
My husband is one of the few that had good parents, and where it wasn't told that he was their fault. Instead, his family is so Norman Rockwell, it's insane. He was a lucky one. So he doesn't have the bitterness the rest of us Gen Xers have.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, it really was speaking to us on a level that what did we all want? We wanted that family of outcasts who understood. You know, we didn't have family at home. Society didn't like us. Like I said, we wrecked the world. Everything was great till we showed up. And yeah, we were stupid. We were problems. As I said, the school system started going to complete shit at the time.
Oh yeah.
And we were all kind of misfits and outcasts in our own way anyway. If you look at a lot of the films that resonated with our era, it wasn't about the cool kids. It never was.
No.
In fact, the so-called quote-unquote popular cool kids were always kind of the villains in the movies that resonated.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the other theme that just keeps on resonating with us is that theme of found family. So of course it worked. I get it. I get it entirely. But so that is your story?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, it kind of turned a little obsessive there, and I became a glutton for punishment, and I kept up, but I can't anymore. I really get my information from the classic X-Men channel, and even then, he's even saying that he hopes that it's not a rehash of Messiah Complex, but that's what it looks like it's going to be. And Wings Eternal Night, I think it's rad that you can speak Gaelic. I've always wanted to learn how to speak Gaelic. I think that's one hell of a language.
Okay, you know what? Wings of Eternal Night, if I can ever, and I do mean if I can ever get back to writing case file Arkham, if I can find myself an artist or I can convert it to novels, I may ask for your help on the Gaelic, because that Glinda's lineage does come into the story quite a bit. I wanted to include some of that, down to the fact of what her true name is, which is, I believe, Shifra. So anyway, just completely off topic.
Yeah, but I can be completely off topic about Gaelic because it's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I like the way it sounds, and I wish I could speak it. When my family came over way back, you know, nobody spoke it over here either, so it was lost to my family.
Well,
is everyone in this show right now either half or either Irish or half Irish like me?
Well, the English made speaking Gaelic like a sort of courtesy sin, or whatever you want to say, like a political sin.
Oh yeah.
So the Irish had to speak English, and so then it got lost, you know, coming across the ocean to some extent.
Well, all I know is no, you're a ginger, Kronk. I didn't realize Janelle was part Irish.
No, my genetics are 85% Scotch Irish is what they said. So like,
so you're a Celt.
Yeah.
And I'm a Hafu, so wow.
I'm a Celt with Italian coloring because the other percentage is Italian.
Oh,
so it's really bizarre.
So you were destined to have big boobs.
Yes.
You had no choice in the matter.
It was just destined.
All the women on my mom's side of the family, that was the Scottish and Irish side of the family, were heavy, top heavy.
See, that's funny. My
darn,
mom's
that must have been horrible.
My mom is literally half and half, and she didn't get either of those halves.
Well, I figure,
enough that I didn't starve when I was born, but that was about it.
I'm guessing Wings of Eternal Night must look like a Viking with that lineage.
Yeah, no kidding. That's actually pretty awesome.
Tall or short, though, is the question. Which are you?
Damian, I'm absolutely positive it is Andy Kubert because it was burned in my brain, the irritation from his art. I do not, no, don't like it.
Andy picks up later.
He does later, yeah, but I mean, good God. Ugh.
Oh, 5'8", that's not bad. So a little more Norwegian-ish. Norway-ish.
Yeah, half Japanese, half Irish. I was destined to be short.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
No offense. I'm only 5'9". I'm not making fun.
What?
Only 5'9". I'm 5'9".
My dad's over. No, well, my dad was 6. Now he's
dude,
like
I am 5'6", barely, and I would say 2/3 of the women I've dated have all been noticeably taller than me. So, not that it bothers me. I didn't really think about it at the time.
All my friends were also over 5'10". My brother's over 5'10", so I'm the shorty. Okay, that's why I say it like that.
Okay, shorty.
Shorty.
So, how about you, Kronk? How did you get introduced?
Okay, I'm gonna sound like a lot of what I'm gonna say is copying Janelle, but I swear to God, I wrote my own homework. Okay, guys, I really did. It started actually with, I don't know if I'd call them a friend, but they had, and they were showing off, they had the first appearance of Wolverine where he fights the Hulk and Wendigo at the same time, basically. And I was like, what's that crazy little Freddy Krueger looking guy doing? And they're like, oh, here, read it. I'm like, nah, comics are for nerds. And I was like, I didn't realize I was a nerd. So I started reading it and I was like, oh, I don't get it. Then I learned, read across and then you go down and you read across and the big splash pages and read the little description, how you have to learn how to read it. And I started to get it, like the pattern started clicking in my head, and like I kept reading it faster and faster, and then like by the time I was done, I was like, I have to read more. Because not that you guys know I'm not the biggest Wolverine fan. I'm not even the biggest Hulk fan, although all my friends think I am. But and this is back before he was an X-Man. The next comic I saw, he was in the comic. He was in the X-Men. It was classic X-Men, probably 7 or something like that. And I wasn't so much chasing Wolverine, but I'm like, hey, I know that guy. That's the little guy from Canada. What's his name? And then I started learning about the other X-Men. And I'm like, whoa, why is it that guy had skin, now he's metal? What the hell happened? And then I had to learn how all their powers worked and their names, their personalities. And then with Claremont, I started learning, they're outcast from society, but they still, they don't want to so much. They want to be in society, but they can live with not being in society. But they still want to do good for society. And I was like, oh wow, that's me. Because as always the smallest or second smallest class, no matter what grade I was in, even after I got held back a year, I was still the smallest kid in the class. I had, of course, I'm a ginger, but I also had buck teeth and the Coke bottle glasses. And so I could not catch a break. And anybody who was having a bad day would come have a punch up with me, or any girl who wanted to feel better about herself would go ahead and tell me what a freak I was. And it got to the point where I was I started agreeing with people. And then X-Men came along and I went, oh, look at this. Other people kind of feel like I do. Because I had friends, but they weren't picked on like I was, So the X-Men showed, that you can be good for the sake of good. Like the old X-Men rule of no killing, like how everybody was always holding Wolverine back. Like, no, you can't do it. He's like, yeah, I can. I got 6 claws that says I can, right? And they're like, no, that's not the way we do things. And like even Storm, like when Rogue attacked Storm and Wolverine in the airport, and like it might have been, fair for him to use his claws because Rogue was using super strength. Instead, she said, Wolverine, you're a warrior without peer. With your healing factor and your metal bones, you're practically invulnerable. You can find a better way. And he ended up doing like a judo flip on Rogue, using her own momentum and throwing her through a fucking concrete wall. And I was like, wow, you really can do things better. Like be better. You're not necessarily being better than anybody else, but being better than your own base instincts and being real good guys, you know what I mean? Because like video games, what's the point? You kill everybody who gets in your way till you get to the big boss, and then kill him too. But you kill. So everything's kill. But the X-Men were here back in the day, not killing people and leaving unconscious people for Shield to clean up. You know what I mean? It was like a different way of thinking that I never thought of, especially when I saw Freddy Krueger wannabe, what I thought of Wolverine at first, not understanding, to like a little bit of a moral code and, like you said, feeling like, you're not alone. And because like, okay, I bucktooth, glasses, ginger, I had everything going against me. I'm the shortest guy in the class. I had everything going against me, so to speak. Not really, I realized in real life, but that's what it felt like. And then I look at Nightcrawler, and then later on when I learned about the Beast, I was like, man, these guys got it a lot worse than me. A shower for them's got to take like 2 hours to dry off, and a number of blow dryers. So I'm just like, how bad do I have it? I don't have fangs. I don't have blue fur. I mean, I would love powers, but like if they can get by and they can be jolly, happy, friendly, people love them, then it's not so bad. It's not so bad. I can try, because even in my teen years, I was um, junior teen, whatever you want to say, like 12, 11, 12, 13. I was occasionally suicidally depressed, and that's because I didn't understand. I just wanted the stuff to be over with. So the X-Men showing that, like, there's another day. There's no chance to do good. Even if the world doesn't accept you, there's still another chance to do good. Another time. And yeah, I had a kind of a rough home life too, because I was living with a Vietnam vet, and that's kind of like living with somebody with brain damage who was in the NFL too.
Ugh.
So started to learn to wake him up in the morning or from naps, from the doorway. Because if you shake daddy's shoulder while he's asleep, he goes for your throat. And so that was a little scary. And when I would get in trouble, which apparently I did a lot, I spent a lot of time grounded. They would take my comics away. So not only was I not hanging out with friends, I wasn't watching shows, I wasn't, watching my favorite cartoons and whatnot. They took all my comics, which was like kind of like taking the rest of my friends away from me. And so, yeah, it was kind of, I hate to use that phrase too, like you said, safe space, but it was like my getaway, my vacation, especially when a new comic came out, because I read so many of my X-Men and such so many times that many of them are probably not worth anything anymore, because I've read them so many times. Like they just hold value to me at this point. And funny thing, like I said, the first time I saw any of the X-Men Wolverine versus Hulk, the first time I read a Captain America comic, it was Wolverine versus Captain America. So Wolverine was my gateway drug.
So this would also the gateway drug.
So this is also why you gravitate towards the really likable characters then, Colossus and Beast, the really good-natured ones?
Yeah, and the fact that Colossus was always ready to sacrifice not only his life, but like his, pain sucks. He was willing to get hurt for everybody, and I was like, man, if I could, then maybe people would recognize me and the good in me, But yeah, that's why I gravitate to the good-natured people, because my original programming was to be a good-natured person, but life sort of hammered that out of me. But it doesn't mean I don't still like it, you know what I mean?
You're pretty good-natured, man. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, you're pretty kind.
Well, I try, let's just say. So,
But it explains why I gravitate towards Gambit and Dazzler. I wanted that confidence. I wanted to look cool, and I wanted to look pretty and flashy, and those two characters are all of that. Because I was raised being told that I wasn't pretty.
Man, were they wrong.
I was told the same thing.
Yeah.
I am not pretty. My peers all backed me up on that one.
I don't know. I saw that video you made on your channel about how you had that picture of you in the mirror, and you said, you know, it takes a lot to look like this, but don't hate me because I'm beautiful.
Well, I was feeling really pretty that day. So.
Hey, you know, Kronk actually looks like what, and this is a compliment, okay? Don't take this the wrong way. What a big, fuzzy, happy orc traipsing around in a human body would look like. Like, that's the dude you want to hang out. That's the cool orc you want to hang out with, not the psychotic one, but you know, the orcs, that there's that small group of orcs that they're still old warriors, but they also are just like, you know, fun loving, have a good time. Okay, like a Viking. Like how they show Vikings today, like, let's drink meat and party and we're all in Valhalla. Woohoo!
Shots.
Yeah, not the scary ones that you see on the show Vikings. It's more realistic.
Oh, wait, well, no, they have their moments of enjoying their meat and grog. But what's kind of interesting is what we did that show 2 weeks ago. We each mentioned our two favorite characters. And you got the flashy, cool ones that are confident. Kronk picked the paladins of the group. I got the tortured ones. Forge and Psylocke, or at least Psylocke written by Claremont. I don't like what they did with the character after Jim Lee got a hold of it.
Oh, you mean Slutlock?
Yeah, that really bothered me. It was like, no, that's not the character.
Well, Jim Lee's the one that decided to have, you know, all of a sudden Jean and Scott were no longer, in love. And all of a sudden Cyclops wanted to, play the horizontal tango with Psylocke, which blew my mind.
That was the other reason I left the series. It's like, okay, these aren't the same characters anymore. One, Scott wouldn't do that, and two, Psylocke wouldn't do that.
Hey, check out what Wings of Eternal Night. She says, Janelle Hun, my dad taught me to wield a knife as an immigrant here to America. He never wanted me to be a victim. I still carry it on in a sheath on my boots. Holy shit. That is awesome.
I think you and my wife would get along.
I was going to say.
Until we moved to Arizona, Kat always carried a blade on her and has a collection. And now she carries. I won't say what she carries now.
She carries something important. That's all you need to know.
Well, it fires 9mm. How about that?
Well, there you go.
Can I just one quick aside? Sure. I need to vent this for a little. It's so stupid. How come a 9mm sucks in the Fallout games? That's all. And that's the ammo that always shows up, and it really pisses me off. Anyway, continue on.
It's because 9mm doesn't have a lot of punch against larger creatures.
Yeah,
and the idea is you're supposed to put 3 in the target.
Yeah, but a rad roach or a mole rat, and it's still coming after you after one shot. Yeah.
I've seen videos online where cops shoot like dudes bigger than themselves like 3-4 times. The guys keep coming, and then there's a fist fight on their hands they can't handle.
That's the big debate between 38, 9mm, and 45 is stopping power versus round. We'll talk. That's Roman Raltz is the round.
I just needed to vent that because it's really frustrating.
But is there any more to your story, Kronk, or is it my
basically that's it. I mean, I started drawing them for the same reason Janelle did, with Silvestri and Adams, and eventually even Lee being kind of my influences. I'm a better mimic than I am an original artist.
Same. When it comes to drawing people, like I can mimic, but I can't do it off the top of my head.
No. Okay, I'm gonna scold both of you for saying that. Okay.
Oh.
I'm scolding both of you. Okay, for this reason and this reason alone. One, every artist, including Jim Lee, needs to practice their anatomy. That is a normal thing that even the best struggle with, okay? Mm-hmm. It's a constant thing. Second, all artists use reference. Anyone who claims to be pulling it right out of the top of their head is full of it. So don't say that. It's perfectly fine to have huge books of reference pictures for poses. That's why they exist. So don't beat yourself up. That is completely normal. And when you hear comics artists say they don't use reference, they're lying. And I know that as a professional who's worked in the industry.
That's why I didn't draw with references for ages, because they were telling me that it was cheating to use references. I had to do it off the top of my head. But I also know that comic book artists, the ones that are already in, can be really shitty. Yeah. And don't want to lose their spot. So they see artists that look like they're good up and comers, and they will shit all over them and make them give up. I didn't find that out till years later. And I'm like, wow, I could have, but yeah, they're like, you have to do it off the top of your head. If you're not, it's cheating and it's not professional.
That's complete crap. I know that's a myth. And again, I'm saying this is someone who worked in the industry since 2008, I believe, 2009. They all use reference. All of them do. So just saying.
I could draw off the top of my head, but I usually wanted to draw what somebody else had drawn, and I never developed my own sort of style or whatever. Like, Andy Kubert's got a style, Lee's got a style. He stole from Art Adams. Art Adams has a style. Silvestri has his own style. I just didn't get a style,
It takes a long time to develop a style, and that comes in writing, painting, penciling. It doesn't matter. That comes with age. It just does. Artists usually develop it quicker than writers for reasons. It just is. But it comes with experience. And it's kind of one of those things where one day you realize what's on the page, you're not trying anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just what you want. So anyway, but my story.
Yes.
Well, I picked up a couple of these. Is it on the screen? Yes.
Yeah.
The official handbook for the Marvel Universe when these were coming out.
Oh my gosh, old school Monica Rambeau.
Yeah. Look at Cannonball.
Oh, wow. Yeah, when Cannonball was still all, knees and elbows and ears.
Yeah. Long legs and everything.
I like how awkward he was.
Yeah, those are the collected editions that I still have that I spent years memorizing.
Yes, wow. That's why you're the encyclopedia of the show.
Gosh, from Baron Mordo to the Collective, man, that is amazing.
Oh my God.
But I was reading these, and it was one of those things where the source book aspect of it just attracted me. I was in a Walden Books. Oh, I must have been 12, 13 years old, and my dad asked if I wanted anything, and it had to be under like $3, $4, and I handed him a couple of those.
Yeah, you could probably get almost 3 of those for that.
Went home because I don't know, I was very curious about this entire universe rather than any specific story. Uh-huh. And I read them thoroughly, and after a while I kept finding certain characters like, hey, that is a cool story. That's a cool character. And then I'd look what team they're on, and it'd say X-Men. And that repeatedly happened, and I finally said, okay, I need to start reading this X-Men book. And so now it must be 8th grade. So I'm in 8th grade, and I find there's a local comic book store that I can walk to or ride my bike to. And I'm at that age where now I'm not going to tell my parents where I'm going. They wouldn't let me go this far from the house. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that far. It was probably 2-3 miles away, but I don't know. So I'd ride my bike down there, and I had a couple dollars. Comics weren't all that expensive back then. And so I grabbed the latest issue of X-Men and then X-Men Classic. Classic X-Men.
Right.
And the 2 stories in them, one was, the classic was Moria's child, Mutant X,
Proteus.
I believe.
Proteus.
Proteus, yeah.
Proteus. It was the Proteus arc, and I thought that was great. It was just part of it. And the art was incredible, the page quality. Then I read the other comic I picked up, and a shark fell out of the sky, and a bunch of brood crawled out.
Yes. Silvestri asked his bestest.
And
isn't that when the couple is camping and it falls out of the sky? Oh God, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought the Proteus stuff was good. That one, it was so damn weird. It blew me away. There was that just a shark falls out of a sky and a bunch of alien looking things crawl out and start infecting people. Second was the subplot about the faith healer, the minister, who was doing a revival.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm like,
whose wife had the really bad arthritis in her hands.
Yeah, I've talked about religion to you guys, so it wasn't anything that really spoke to me on that level. It was that his story was so humanizing. It was just in there. It was just part of the story. It was not some major element or even anything preachy. It was just a character in the story. And then the whole thing with them running around the darkened streets and alleyways fighting aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And the art was just so damn intense. The characters were cool that I was hooked.
That was the third time Colossus killed, because he technically killed Proteus, and then he killed the Riptide, and then he killed Brickbat of the Brood.
Man, you got a good memory.
That was a major moment, because Colossus didn't kill, remember? I mean, even for an atheist, it was against his code.
It wasn't, but most of his kills were accidental, weren't they? Or
no, he killed Riptide on purpose.
Was that after Riptide injured Kitty?
Yeah, and stuck him full of shrapnel and shards. Oh no, Harpoon hurt Kitty.
Okay.
But Riptide jumped in the way to stop him from getting to Harpoon when he said, "Make your peace." Or after that, he said, "Make your peace with your gods, little man," because he said something like, "Now I'm going to kill you" or something like that. After he killed Riptide. But
my name is Diego Montoya, prepared to die.
Exactly.
Okay, let's pop this on the screen. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You're in 8th grade. You see that this looks freaking cool. It's like, okay, I got to read this, whatever the hell it is.
I read that the second time the X-Men fought the Brood before I read the first time they fought the Brood. The first time was not even as scary, although it was more epic in a way. The second one was friggin' scary, because if you think about it, you read that whole second Brood story, it's not over. Even today, it is not over. Remember the preacher's wife? Her hands were magically healed, and the black ambulance driver. She's not human anymore.
And they never, again, that was one of the things that was really kind of sad when Claremont left, is we didn't get endings to a lot of, to those stories.
Right. We'll never see that, but I'm just saying they're still here.
Technically, we got endings, just other writers decided to put their spin on it and, mess it all up. But none of those stories ended.
And then the next issue was like, oh my God, I have to read this.
Yeah. The one with Wolverine.
Yeah, well, that cover just alone.
Yes.
And this was also seeding everything for Inferno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things were about to get rougher.
And this
Havoc was still trying to not kill back then too.
First year at a new school, and it was like suddenly the kids who were into X-Men I immediately fell in with. And so if I couldn't afford one, I could read theirs.
Such a good cover.
Just the whole thing was just really, it wasn't what I was expecting. The characters were really cool, right? And I'd read them from the handbook. So I was expecting some sort of a superhero type story when I bought the book, because, Marvel superheroes, right? And so I was figuring it was going to be more along the lines of the Spider-Man adventures or something like that. And hold on, let me open this one up.
A little bit more like Aliens.
Which, I loved.
Yeah. No, that's a flawless story right there. There's nothing wrong. There's a jump scare. Love it.
Yep.
Just the weird prod on the hand.
Yeah.
That was creepy as hell.
How quickly they could change between brood and human too.
This was my introduction to Madeline. Instantly liked her, and not because she was a hot redhead. That definitely helped, but just her personality. I thought it was interesting that she could hold her own, and she didn't have any abilities. Come on, where is the images? This urban warfare going on with these people possessed by aliens.
Yeah, through the streets of Denver.
This was it was a hell of a lot darker. Don't get me wrong. It's a hell of a lot darker than what I'm about to mention. But this was more on the level of Buckaroo Banzai and Inhumanoids than it was.
Yeah.
What I was expecting.
Havoc and Colossus trying not to kill, but both of them, I think, being forced to.
Yeah, and it was just a great story all around. And that after that, I was hooked. And then there was Inferno. So, but yeah, and the other thing is I didn't expect stories that were going to emotionally impact me that much. Because again, I was expecting like what I'd seen from the superheroes I saw on TV, the old 60s Spider-Man show, the Spider-Man and Friends, Spider-Woman, the Fantastic Four show.
Yeah, Incredible Hulk show.
Yeah, oh well, okay. The one with
the cartoon, I mean.
Okay, the cartoon. Yeah, I was going to say
live action was a different animal.
The live action one could function in this setting just fine.
Yeah.
As anyone who's read my pop culture book, Boobs of Steel, I talk in depth about how watching the old set 1970s Incredible Hulk show, it scared the hell out of me, but had an emotional effect as well. But yeah, I did not expect such depth, and I was just blown away by it because it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Prior to that, the only thing I'd been reading was Transformers through elementary school. And, occasionally like a Marvel superhero would show up in one of their adventures, and it was about what you'd expect.
Yeah, Spider-Man fighting Megatron.
Yeah. Okay, so you remember. You absolutely remember.
Yes.
But yeah, it was one of those things where you kept your comic books, you read them over and over again, you read everything in the letters column.
Yes. Dreamt of getting into the letters column.
Yeah. And I remember being in 8th grade writing a letter saying that Jubilee was really getting on my nerves.
Now, let me add, okay, because I wrote several letters to Marvel too, because yes, we are all geeks. Did you guys ever get a care package from them?
I never got a letter off to them.
I sent several letters, and I think they must have realized I was a hardcore fan because I came home from one day and there was this package in the mail from Marvel Comics. I was like, what the hell? And they thanked me for my letters and for being a fan, and they sent me a bunch of free comics. I think they were trying to tell me, please stop sending letters to us. Here's all this free swag.
Maybe they sent you the comics that I paid for, because I got, back when there was subscriptions, I paid for a year's subscription. I got 3 comics. And I know that more than 3 comics came out that year.
Yeah, it was wild. And I haven't heard of anybody else getting that. So I don't know if it was, like I said, I was weirdly obsessed. And I was basically critiquing. And I mean, from the age of 12, man. And I was also, because I thought certain characters were dumb, we're looking at you, Jubilee. And I kept sending in my own drawings at 12, 13, 14 years old of characters that are better than Jubilee. Here, you can use mine for free. Just get rid of Jubilee, please.
Please retire her.
I just remember being in 5th grade and drawing a picture of Starscream. This is a kid's drawing, keep in mind, right?
My man.
sending in a picture of Starscream kicking Megatron's ass.
Oh, wow. Kicking him right in the butt, huh?
Yes, actually.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I sent 2 letters, and the thing was, maybe you received a care package, because contrary to what people seem to claim these days, I know for a fact that Marvel did go out of their way to encourage female fans who were really into their books.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been that simple, Janelle.
Oh, well, like I said, I think I had sent like maybe several letters by that point.
Which is cool. Which is cool. If that's why they did it, that's fine.
Oh, that was like one of the greatest days of my life. Like, I was so happy when I came home. I was like, oh my God, Marvel sent me something. I have it somewhere too.
That's cool. That is really cool. That must have been like Christmas.
Oh, it was. My parents were like, oh, okay, great. But like my friends like, Marvel sent me this. And I brought the letter with me to school. And yeah, they thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I sent 2 letters. The first one was, I had said, why the hell is Logan putting up with this with Jubilee? Which I grew to really like the character, but initially I was like, what the hell?
Oh, I never liked her. I could not understand why Wolverine was putting up with her, except for his protective instincts, always taking care of younger people.
I liked her during the Madripoor run. And
yeah,
that
exactly.
Was it.
Yeah, that's when I grew to like the character.
I didn't read the Madripoor run, so.
And the second letter I wrote was in 1990, where I hadn't known yet, but Jim Lee had kind of taken over and they'd fired Claremont, and I didn't know this. And I did write a letter saying, why the hell is Psylocke acting so out of character? And it was this long essay about, look, this is what the character was. Now she's a hoe. What the hell?
Right. Because Lee wanted a hoe.
I actually do think that she was his fetish.
Yeah, I do too. That I also asked whatever became of Gateway.
Yeah, nobody knows what came. Well, I think he ended up in Krakoa at some point. Yeah.
Oh Lord.
You find out he's the great grandfather of Bishop.
No, none of that counts.
Because of course.
I refuse to accept that as reality.
Because Bishop looks like an abo. No.
That's fanfic. That's fanfic. Just done.
They were at one point trying to make Storm his grandmother or great grandmother, and fans were like, yeah, no. Because first they were trying to have her be in a relationship with Bishop. That's where the whole breakup with Forge. And then people didn't like that. And they brought Forge and Storm back together for a little bit longer under John Romita Jr. And then there was this whole thing where Storm might actually be Bishop's grandmother. And fans are like, no, that's stupid. So they chose Gateway. I'm like, Bishop doesn't have any of the facial features of somebody, an Aborigine.
No, not at all.
Or Maori.
Well, he's supposed to be an Abo, but.
Yeah, he's supposed to be an Aborigine, or it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now,
for all I fucking know.
Now, honestly, like, he just looks like a generic black man. But I can remember when Silvestri was drawing him Aborigine, like the facial features and everything. It was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, like he was an extra in Crocodile Dundee.
Aboriginals, yeah, that actually is kind of insulting, because the Aboriginals are distinctly genetically different.
Yeah, they're more South Asian than they are African at all.
Well, if you look at their facial features, I mean, and then look at, like Indonesia, the Philippines, like that whole area, they have the same facial features. Well, or I shouldn't say same, similar.
Yeah, similar.
They have populations in India that look like Aboriginals too, which kind of explains part of where they came from, because the same dogs you can find in India are in Australia. They just call them dingoes.
Oh, so that was, again, I would say I stuck with the X-Men solidly all the way up till I realized Claremont wasn't writing anymore, and then I dropped it.
Yeah.
Very sadly, I was sad to see it go, but oh well.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else I can mention about that. It was interesting because I got into it as a geeky junior high student, right?
Yeah.
And then into my high school years, as I got into the whole goth industrial scene and started doing that, it was still a constant. It was like everyone in the scene, or at least a lot of them, all read the X-Men. Punks read the X-Men. You'd be shocked, And it was the one book that I also knew a lot of females read. It was that title.
It was I don't want to say bizarre, but I mean, it was really strange that I don't even know how to put it, because it wouldn't be strange either. I guess it would just be brilliant in the way that Claremont wrote, and like first Byrne and then Romita Jr. and then Silvestri drew in such a way that made it welcoming for females, for girls to read it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, now in hindsight, we're talking and it's like, oh yeah, it wasn't really unheard of to hear a girl reading X-Men comics. But when when we all started reading, there weren't as many girls reading X-Men.
Right.
I actually didn't meet any girls that read comics until my senior year in high school. But then there was like a plethora of them,
Well,
they came out of the woodwork.
I think you'd be shocked how many tomboys were in the counterculture back then, the whole alt scene. So I
just mean at my comic store and around my area.
It was just part of the landscape, I guess. But also, Claremont very much gave lots of nods to counterculture in his comics.
Yes, he did.
And there was definitely an understanding and awareness of a lot of the things we liked in those books that you couldn't find in other comics. And I don't think we really saw much of that on other books doing what Claremont was until maybe the late 80s and into the 90s. When, we all started getting into reading J.O. Barr's The Crow, and there was Sandman, and then all those kind of became normal parts of the landscape as well.
I was a pure X guy. I did not read anything else but X for the longest time.
I was an X snob too.
Never read The Crow, never read Sandman, never read this, that, or the other thing. You can name a dozen things. I still haven't read them.
Okay, look. If you were in the goth industrial scene,
oh no,
your girlfriend's reading Sandman. That's just a given.
Okay. I'd have had to have
and possibly spooning over the character. So
I'd have had to have a girlfriend, which is not likely.
Oh yeah, Damian brings up Jim Ballott's tarot as well.
Yeah,
was part of the scene.
And that's the thing, is for it getting so much abuse for being a titty book. From what I understand, the audience is primarily female.
Don't forget also Dawn. The indie comic Dawn was another one that I'd seen found out that girls were reading later too.
Well, that began Linsner. First off, his art's incredible. His art was amazing. And people still cosplay the Dawn character to this day. It started as an anthology series, and she was just kind of like the Rod Sterling character that would start at the beginning and give the narrative, leading you into the story. And all the stories had kind of a Twilight Zone or Tales from the Dark Side type vibe to it, but with a counterculture twist. This one's really dark, actually. The one I recall was the issue in which there was a rock star, this up-and-coming rock star, and he starts getting attention, and then he gets a groupie pregnant, and he moves in with her, and he's like, oh man, my career's over. I've got to be a dad, right? And he's just miserable. And then he sees the kid climb out a window, and he doesn't stop it.
Fuck.
And then he calls his agent and says, "Hey, I think I can get back on the road."
Whoa.
That was some dark shit.
Ew.
Oh, he wasn't supposed to be a hero. He was the villain.
If I read that, I probably would have thrown up. I'm not even a kid.
I think I would have cried, yeah.
That was kind of the commentary.
It's weird that it started out like that and then shifted to a post-apocalyptic world where she was trying to guide her reincarnated lover, the god, was it Cerunios?
Yeah.
From the alternate world he had landed on, which was post-apocalyptic New York, and bring him back to where he was supposed to be. His adventures through like that world's multiverse. Well, that's the Dawn that I read.
He would also he started again as kind of this dark, twisted vignettes anthology, and then as he started to develop his own world, he developed other characters, and he had a real knack for doing slice of life stories that were morbidly charming, like Vampire's Christmas, about a homeless vampire who does a good deed on Christmas for someone in need. Yeah, there was like, this works. It worked great. It's this heartwarming story about a bitter old vampire who's homeless and hates everything, doing something nice for somebody. Trying to think of some of the others, but yeah, and then the Dawn series as well became its own thing.
Oh, we're missing a important series too, where a lot of the girls read the first part of it, but as it went on, it definitely went more towards boys, and that was Grendel.
Grendel, yeah, Grendel never stopped being good.
No,
until his son wrote it.
Yeah, until his son got TDS and convinced him to write the new Grendel. I read the first 12-issue arc, and I was pissed. I'm sorry, Donald Trump being the all-ultimate villain, and there's like Donald Trump aliens. Oh my god. Anyway.
It sounds like the Savage Dragon all over again.
Yes. But yeah, the original Grendel, when it was Hunter Rose and like the whole romantic backstory of that villain, you know, girls were swooning over, but then you get to Christine Spar, and then it's like, oh, this isn't a romantic story anymore. You got Christine Spar and then Orion.
Yeah.
And then Grendel Prime. Yeah. See, my favorite is Orion's Reign. That's my favorite arc.
I agree. That was that and the one that was set in the Balkans.
Oh, Homecoming. Was it Homecoming?
That too. Homecoming's great, but no, the one that was set in the Balkans, and it was a metaphor for what was going on during the Bosnian
Herzegovina war, right?
Yeah.
Because it was written by oh shit. He died. Didn't he die soon after writing it? And it was some of the best art I'd ever seen, and the story kind of ends on a cliffhanger, and that came out during the Grendel Prime years. It was a good oh yeah, the Christine Spar story is depressing. Like, I totally understand why she became Grendel. And the fact that the main villain from the Christine Spar story carries over as the main villain for the Orion Reign story.
So, oh yeah, Kat's mentioning Hunter Rose's actual daughter, but
oh God, the adopted daughter, Jesus, that was horrifying. Yeah, no, that was the daughter, what happened to her. Dear God. I was not expecting that.
That's kind of weird that Matt Wagner is so talented and his son isn't.
Well, Matt Wagner is still doing Mage. I've only read a little bit of Mage, but that story's been going on God, since the 80s, and it's going in real time. So the main character has aged, he's bald. It's still going strong, but I cannot believe he let his son do Grendel. And to literally the whole entire comic book was about Orange Man bad.
Yeah, when Donald Trump's your big villain, you kind of fail.
Yeah, and I mean, literally, it was a small, fat, orange alien with blue hair that said Bigley. And the blue hair was shaped like Donald Trump's hair, and he had the same, like, rings around the eyes for his spray tan. Yeah, like the whole thing. Just look it up. It's fucking awful.
I got no time for Trump being the villain.
Yeah, really? Is that where we're going, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if Matt Wagner was hoping that maybe his son would pull off something amazing, but I stopped. That was when I dropped Grendel. I stopped reading after that.
Why bother? Really? Why bother?
I was so excited. When was the last time like a Grendel story had come out? Before I got it during COVID too. So I was like, oh cool, I've got COVID stories to read. And I can't remember the last time a Grendel story came out. Like from Matt Wagner, I can't. It had been at least 10 years.
I don't know. Mass insanity has taken over the industry, and now they're paying for it bigly.
Bigly.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of a. I don't want to go too dark on this because we've had such a good show. We didn't go down any of the dark paths, but I will say, Kat and I saw this coming when we started 01. As early as 2009, we kind of saw this coming when Hollywood started taking over comics. And then the whole Big Bang Theory group of kids started taking over as well. And they became the audience that all the companies wanted to appeal to. And there was a real downward swing, and we started our own company and things were going fine. And then 2016 rolled around, and I mean, if you were not in lockstep with wokeness, and we were known as being the politically incorrect company. I mean, we kind of marketed ourselves as, well, we publish stuff no one else will. We're okay we publish offensive stuff. We'll take risks. We'll push limits. And even though we weren't political or even, we really didn't have any political stance, because we weren't woke, got us blackballed. And I have just been kind of waiting for the industry to finally collapse and right itself. And that was in 2016. And here we are 8 years later. And just finally, is it beginning to suddenly figure out, wait a minute, this can't be sustained. Nobody's buying this stuff. This is garbage.
If you build it, they won't come.
Yeah. And am I going to live long enough to actually start publishing this stuff again? Am I going to live long enough to start reading comics and actually deal with mainstream again?
If I can make my comic, you might. How about that? Because it won't be right wing, it won't be left wing either, though.
Well, that's the thing. We weren't publishing that kind of material. We wanted to write entertaining stories, but the status quo became, if you weren't preaching, if you weren't doing all the talking points, you were blacklisted. If you weren't saying all the right buzzwords or sending the right message. And as Kronk, that is why they have blue balls. Don says.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah, it does baffle me. You look at the comics in the 80s, and there was plenty of political commentary in them.
Yes, tons.
But it didn't hurt the stories any.
Especially Claremont stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But he didn't beat you over the head with it. There was always a liberal twist to it, you could tell, but they weren't telling you what to think. They just told you what this other person thought. And Wolverine saying, fuck you, get out of my face.
He was often very even-handed in it.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like yeah.
I was going to say, he even made Senator Kelly look sympathetic when his wife, who actually did want to help the mutant cause, died in his arms.
Right.
After a Sentinel killed her, and after Rogue had saved his life before, getting sucked into Siege Perilous.
Wasn't that Master Mold?
Yes, Master Mold. It was Master Mold that took her out, killed her, and then Rogue went through Siege Perilous with Master Mold.
Yeah, didn't she have to? I think not only did she have to sacrifice herself, but she had to push him through, didn't she?
Yes, that's why she pushed Master Mold through, and the gate closed, and everybody knew she was dead. But yeah, his wife got killed protecting mutants, and then he turned around and got protected by the mutants that his wife protected. So I mean, it was that was a great sympathetic moment because he truly loved his wife.
And that's a big change from Days of Future Past, when the Brotherhood went after him and the X-Men protected him, and he's still like, fuck all mutants.
Yeah.
That's a big character shift without being unreasonable. You know, not like you don't see that being possible, you know? And that's what Claremont did. He changed people without like turning somebody into a villain all of a sudden. Like the last time we saw Banshee, he was in charge of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Well, that was another repeated theme I think we all liked about Claremont's writing, was he was really big on redemptive arcs. And even if there wasn't a redemptive arc, there was still the humanizing of characters.
Magneto was a straight up villain, but he got his redemptive arc. You could feel sympathy for him for the horrible shit that he went through. But at the same time, like, no, you're a straight up villain, dude.
Yeah. He showed his true colors.
Yeah, he was not a paladin ever, but you could see where he was coming from, even if he was wrong.
So anyway, I think unless we got anything else we want to ramble about, it's been a good show.
Yeah, no, I can hear movement in the kitchen. It's getting to be dinner time, so I should probably.
I can smell dinner too, and it does smell very good.
Yeah, mine just got here too, so.
Plus, I don't know if you guys could hear Chris in the background. He's getting antsy to get in here and do his schoolwork.
Yeah.
Everybody like the video.
Well, a couple things. First, remind Chris that I can telepathically hear his body making poop.
Oh God, I'm not going to tell him that, is he? Jesus.
I like saying things that weird out her son, because her son's really, really intelligent.
Yeah.
So it's great when you can catch him off guard.
That one I think you're going to have to do to him in person.
Oh, just to when he gets kind of snotty, just to knock him off his off balance. Say that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened last time when he was kind of getting smart ass with me.
That's right. You said you sneak into his room at night and sniff the armpits of his shirts, and the look on Chris's face was like, "What the fuck?"
Uncle Ishii's the best.
Does Chris will get this look when Ishii says stuff? He'll look and he kind of looks at you like, "What? Wait, did I hear that right?" And then you see his brain trying to compute.
Well, you see, I got a lot of practice in my teenage and college years, because this was the way I'd mess with drunks, because they would pause for a second and try and think it through. We used to hang out with this one girl that was really cool, but when she get drunk, she would get really mouthy, and so I'd whisper into her ear, "You see that guy over there? See that guy? He's got fish in his pants."
Oh, God.
And she would just lose her shit laughing. And if she was drunk enough, she'd walk up to the people, "You got fish in your pants." But anyway, everyone, for our other show, Gen X is Pissed Off, where you get to hear 4 middle-aged Gen Xers pissing and moaning about life, or recalling stories of all the stupid shit we did when we were young.
Or Viking fans falling out of the sky.
Yeah, exactly. Every week, I upload clips from the podcast, edited, remastered, and it's just all the good bits. So no pauses, no no weird asides. You get straight stories, and this week we've uploaded weaponized food stories about using MREs for fun and destruction. Cat's Experiment with Lunchables, and the Goth Girl Grave Robber. I'll have to find the episode where I talked about the other story about that goth girl in the graveyard, but that's for another time. So like and subscribe.
Do it now.
And Wings of Eternal Night says, I swear my daughter has inherited my Irish and Norwegian temperament at 4 years old, and she terrifies her father. Well, that's one of the great things about that Celt blood, and I'm guessing probably the Norwegian blood. That hot temper.
She pulling a knife on him, or what? What's going on there?
Oh no! I think that's one of the sexiest things about my wife is that temper she has.
I mean, the daughter, is she pulling like a sword on daddy, or what? What's going on there?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, and share this around if you can, because we're being throttled by YouTube. But have a good evening, everyone.
Night, everyone.